Okay, so LLCs for versus corporations. I get this is probably one of my most popular questions, and so we'll try to go through this line by line. So obviously on the left you have LLCs, on the right you have corporations. So California is always broke for some reason, but they got a surplus this year, so I don't know why they don't give us more of our money back. To have an LLC and corporation is $800 a year, no matter what. So whether you go, if you do business or not, you owe this money. Okay, so there's a but for 2023. When the pandemic started, the governor said, hey, for the first year, I'm going to waive the $800 franchise tax for new LLCs formed. This year is the last year, 2023. So if you are interested in forming an LLC, this is probably the last year you'll get the free $800 franchise tax for the first year. Corporations, that's always been the case. You always get the first year free. But after that, you have to pay $800, right? You get asset protection for your personal assets, yes. So a lot of people ask me, is one better than the other for personal asset protection? Meaning, like if you commit malpractice in my case, or you do something wrong in your business, someone slip and falls, which one's better for protecting your personal bank accounts or other personal assets? In my personal opinion, they do about the same. There's no particular advantage for personal asset protection. So for me, it doesn't really matter in terms of asset protection. For taxes, now a lot of people say, do I save money on taxes? So for LLCs, it's called a pass-through. So it doesn't really change what you file. You file on the Schedule C 1040, unless you pick a different designation. For corporations, you probably heard of the double taxation, right? And so you'll get taxed at the corporate level, and then when you take a distribution at your corporation, you'll pay again. Did I have a question here?
Yeah, I thought you could do an S corp.
Yeah, you can, and thank you for bringing that up. I have. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But yes, this right here is just the default if you don't do anything. So maintenance. LLC is a little bit easier to maintain. Every 2 years, you have the file statement of information, and then for corporations, you have to file that. Plus, the other thing you're supposed to do called annual minutes. You're supposed to have these meetings with yourselves, and so it's a little bit more time intensive for maintaining a corporation. Management for LLCs and corporations. So for LLCs, it's a lot more flexible. You can have what we call managers only. They're essentially the CEOs, presidents, and it's a lot more flexible. So I just set up a new company for one of my clients. They have about 20 owners, and what we had to structure this so that we're called 5 managers, basically a board of managers who's responsible for the day-to-day operations. And so there was a mix of owners and non-owners. And with that, we can do LLCs. With corporations, you can't do that as much. With corporations, you're required to have a board of directors and officers, which are president, secretary, and treasurer. And practically speaking, for a lot of small businesses, they typically are the same people. So I have a client, they're a corporation, but there's only one owner. So he's the only board of director and then officer. So for some reason, he has meetings with themselves in Las Vegas and Miami and New York, and I don't know. Yeah. No. Yeah, question.
So we met before.
Yeah, Janice.
And so we have, I created a sole proprietor with EIN and everything. So I'm planning to meet up again to do the LLC.
Mm-hmm.
So does it have like a time frame? I have to wait for a year to do that because you say this is the last year. What is that? The 800.
Yeah. So for LLCs, LLCs formed before December 31st, 2023.
Okay.
They're eligible for waived annual franchise first year
Okay.
for the first taxable year. Yeah. Yes, please.
So my business is registered as sole proprietor.
Mm-hmm.
So can I move it to LLC with the same business name, or do I need to do a lot of paperwork again?
No, you don't. You form an LLC with the same name. You probably have to change, you'd have to get new bank accounts. So there's a lot of administrative stuff you'd have to do in the back. But forward facing, you probably have to update your contracts if you have any contracts because it's a new entity. But forward facing, if it's the same name, you probably won't have to do much. You won't have to change any signs or anything.
In regards to the sole owner for the S corp, I was told that you don't need to have meetings with yourself for the minutes. Now you're saying you should still do the annual minutes?
So
If there is one owner?
yeah, so corporation, and it's not so much an S corp requirement because, and I'll get into a little bit more. S corp is just a tax designation. The annual meeting minutes requirement is a or it's a corporate law requirement, but it can be very informal. So for some of my clients, for sole owners, we have what's called paper meetings. So if you have written we call bylaws, it's the internal documents. If you've written it correctly, they'll allow you to have just written meetings, so to speak. So you don't have to sit here and go, hey, and this, and you got to move to the other chair, and then you go secretary. No, you don't have to do that. You can, yeah.
Because I know for asset protection, that's very important to have those.
Correct. So Jell make a really good point for asset protection purposes, because what's going to happen if you get sued? I don't do litigation anymore, but when I did, when we sue the other parties that have a company, they have a corporation, okay, hey, I'm going to ask for your articles of incorporation, I'm going to ask for your bylaws, and give me the minutes that authorize this particular action, right? Minutes are, hey, the board has voted, or the office, the shareholders have voted to take this particular action. If you haven't, it's not a, what's the word? It's not the one thing that will break your defense, but that this plus this plus this will tell me, oh, this particular person who owns the company is not maintaining the corporate formalities, and now I have a window to attack and say, oh, okay, judge, they're not maintaining the corporate formalities. I think we should be able to go after the personal assets to satisfy this judgment, piercing the veil.
And just to share a little bit about the corporation, speaking on the banking side, if there's any changes or new accounts, they always require the utmost up-to-date minutes and all the forms that are required. So,
Yeah.
It's important to maintain them, even if it is just one.
Correct. And to her point, I've had a client, they had to update their banking, and it was kind of a last minute thing. They asked me, hey, I need you to draft minutes to authorize this new person they're adding to the bank account.
Yeah, anytime there's changes, we need
Yeah.
some new information.
Yeah. Management, capital raise. Okay, so for some companies, they're looking to raise money from outside investors, friends and family, even maybe venture capitalists. We've done capital raises for LLCs, which is perfectly okay, but it's easier and preferred by outside investors to use corporations. Excuse me. Now, you can convert from an LLC to a corporation. So if you are operating as an LLC and someone says, hey, I want to give you $10 million because I like what you're doing, but one of the conditions is you're going to have to change to corporation. That's pretty straightforward, and that's doable.
So why do that? Why is it preferred in a corporation?
It's just a little bit easier to raise money.
You have more than one investor in that scenario.
Typically, and depends on how sophisticated they are. Usually, like mom and pop, they usually don't care. But if you have institutional investors, they will typically request that. And I think this may have happened with like Facebook. If I'm remembering correctly, they were LLC and they had to change to corporation. So the next point is available for professionals. So do we have any other licensed professionals here? Just me? Okay, so I'll give you an example. So like LLCs, like for me, we're not allowed to form LLCs as attorneys because what the government says is, we talk about asset protection. So if I do something wrong, right, someone sues me, then, right, they'll take my 98 Honda Civic, right, to satisfy the judgment. So what the government says is, hey, it's not fair for Dan to, well, not me, my competitor, to do a very poor job as malpractice, and for them to hide behind an LLC or corporation and say, hey, yeah, I committed malpractice, but they're judgment proof and you can't get any money. It's not good for society to not be able to go after doctors or lawyers or engineers for malpractice. So what they're saying is LLCs, you can't form professional LLCs, but for corporations, they're required to form, if you're gonna form an entity, they have to form what's called a professional corporation. But professional corporation does not protect them from malpractice. So you can sue them. It won't protect, professionals won't be protected as a corporation from their personal assets. Now, they may have malpractice liability insurance to cover them, but they can't hide behind corporations to protect them.